Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Milo. Today we're going to be focusing on a specific Mortal Kombat character. That character is Reptile. The aspect of that character that we're going to be focusing on is his win-loss record, his official win-loss record. His trailer for Mortal Kombat 1 just dropped, which seemingly shows him now as a good guy with his own chapter in the story mode. So depending on how long the chapters are in that game, his win-loss record is undoubtedly going to improve because of that game. But Reptile has been around for a long time, dating all the way back to the first Mortal Kombat where he was a secret boss. So since then, how has he fared? He's been in movies, TV series, many games. So what is his official win-loss record? Well, let's find out. First up is Mortal Kombat 9, which of course was actually a remake of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. In this depiction, Reptile is not a secret boss. Instead, he's the first fighter to represent Outworld, and he loses to Johnny Cage.
And I'm taking you out for dinner.
We then fast forward to Mortal Kombat 2, where he's part of an endurance match that Smoke encounters, where he has to fight Reptile and Shang Tsung, which Smoke wins, putting Reptile to 0-2. That fight, however, was not considered part of the second tournament, so he gets another fight in MK2, this time against Sub-Zero, who he also loses to, pushing him down to 0-3. Then we jump ahead once more to Mortal Kombat 3, where he once again is the first encounter. This time, it's Stryker who gets to face him. Stryker wins, pushing Reptile down to 0-4. And that's it for his time in MK9. Very underutilized. But what about MKX? He does participate in a brawl alongside Kotal Khan and Devora against some Tarkatans, but we don't actually see that he's the one that finishes those Tarkatans off. It cuts away. And even still, those aren't named characters, so I wouldn't give him those anyways. His first official fight in MKX is against Takeda, who beats him, pushing Reptile down to 0-5. He then makes one more appearance near the end of the game, where he gets the jump on Jackie Briggs and gets some payback on Takeda, blasting him in the face with some acid, but ultimately he loses this fight as well. And that's the end of his time in the most recent Mortal Kombat games. Overall, he was very underutilized. Even though he wasn't killed, he didn't come back in Mortal Kombat 11. But what about his appearances prior to MK9? Well, he gets killed by Shinnok in his Mortal Kombat 4 ending. I'm counting that as a loss. Then in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Nitara convinces him to fight Cyrax, which, according to Cyrax's bio, Reptile lost that as well. This turn of events is what domino effect led him to being transformed into Onaga. I'm not going to add any Onaga fights to his record, so beating Raiden, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung all at once, no, he doesn't get those. But in a way, Reptile lucked out here, because if he had been around for Deception and Armageddon, he definitely would have lost in those story modes too. They did include Reptile on the roster in Armageddon, even if it didn't make sense though. Unless him and Onaga somehow separated Kami Piccolo style. But maybe you could argue that that was a different Reptile, considering they didn't use the Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance design and instead went with his Shaolin Monks one. But speaking of his Shaolin Monks design, he also loses in that game. But what about the movies? How does he fare in those? Well, in the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie, he loses to Liu Kang, but I actually want to take some time to point out something about this fight. The first time you watch this, you may not notice, but once you know, it's impossible to unsee. This Reptile fight was most certainly an afterthought. Johnny Cage and Liu Kang are walking through Outworld, and they continue until they meet Kitana. At some late stage of development, somebody decided that they needed another fight here. So in the middle of their casual stroll in Outworld, Liu Kang stops, walks up to a wall, grabs Reptile, and then is kicked through a wall. Now remember, Johnny Cage is here. And before the fight commences, all he says to Liu Kang is this.
What are you doing?
He doesn't have any lines or reaction to the Reptile fight at all. He doesn't even go up to the hole to make sure Liu hasn't died in there.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
This fight also gives us the POV, you're a giant and Liu Kang is coming in for a hug shot. Because Reptile dies here, he's not in Annihilation, but his lizard form does make an appearance in the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie, where I would say this is the most formidable we've ever seen Reptile be. but he fights Kano, Cole, and Sonya all at the same time and loses. He also makes an appearance in Scorpion's Revenge, where in their interpretation of the first Mortal Kombat tournament, he fights Sonya instead of Johnny Cage. But she not only defeats him, she also kills him, so he's not in any of the other animated films. But what about Mortal Kombat Conquest? The Zaterrans are featured prominently in that series. How does he fare there? Well, he actually gets a kill. Right before he can do his acid spit to Kung Lao, a character named Tomas jumps in the way and takes the acid to the face and dies instead. So there we have it. He's on the board. He's got one win. Next time he fights in Conquest, Zero is out looking for one of the Amazon women beehives to destroy. When he finds one, Reptile is there defending it. And Reptile beats Zero as well. It's looking up for him. He's got two now. Unfortunately, the victory is short-lived because he's immediately jumped by Anka and Kiri, who 2-on-1 beat him down and kill him. Now here's where things get weird. In Mortal Kombat Conquest, all of the male Zaterrans are referred to as Reptile. So the next Reptile fight we get is actually Reptile versus Reptile in front of the Council of Reptiles. So does this count as a win or a loss for Reptile? I could say it's a draw, that the win and loss nullify each other, but instead I'll add 1 to the win and loss column, just so it makes his win column look a little better. Taja then convinces one of the reptiles to come out of his camouflage, pretending to be one of the Amazon women that he is defending a hive for. While they don't exactly fight, she does get a sneak attack, stab, and kill him. So I'm gonna add 1 more to the reptile loss column there. But what about the Malibu comics? How does he do there? His first appearance is in the Goro Prince of Pain series, where he's tasked with tracking down the missing Shokan Prince in Outworld. But instead of finding Goro, he finds the combatant, who easily defeats Reptile. Not long after, Jax arrives, who is also looking for Goro. Reptile fights Jax, and it looks like Reptile is not only going to win, but that he's potentially going to kill Jax, but their fight is interrupted by Goro. This fight looked like it was intended to be where Jax lost his arms, but they decided instead to push it off to a later time. I'm fine with giving Reptile this win. Reptile's next fight is in the Raiden and Kano comic, where he and Kano fight over the magical blade Ebon Rule. Unfortunately, Reptile loses there as well. In the Battle Wave comic, Reptile is caught spying on Kitana, who is plotting to overthrow Shao Kahn. It's not quite fair, but he gets attacked by Kitana, Baraka, Sub-Zero, and Kung Lao all at the same time, but still counts as a loss. There's a couple of instances in Battle Wave where Reptile looks helpless and afraid at the hands of the Earthrealmers, but they don't technically show him lose, so I'm not going to count those. However, in Tournament Edition 2, he does lose to Johnny Cage's bodyguard, Bo, who decides that instead of competing in the rest of the tournament, he would rather use Reptile as a chair and look out at the Outworld horizon. Later, he is also defeated by Kitana in her spin-off comic. In the Mortal Kombat X comic, Reptile doesn't really have any fights. Throughout the series, stuff like Johnny Cage grabbing his tongue, Melina stabbing him, Melina biting his neck, that kind of stuff happens, but he doesn't actually have any fights. The only thing that would technically count is they showed a flashback of his fight against Johnny Cage from the first Mortal Kombat tournament. But since we already have that one accounted for, we're not going to include it. The last entry is from Defenders of the Realm. While not technically Reptile, it's a different Zaterran named Komodai. Sonya does refer to him as Reptile near the end of the episode, so I'm including it anyways. He manages to beat Jax and Sonya, even ruining Jax's metal arms. But then the two team up and beat him together at the end of the episode. Well, there we have it. Reptile's final win-loss record is 6 wins, 21 losses. Let me know if there was any obscure Reptile fights that I missed. How many fights do you think they're going to let Reptile win in Mortal Kombat 1? And will this trend of him being one of the good characters persist past this game into Mortal Kombat 2? Because if that happens, his win-loss record will really get a lot better than it is here. But alright, thanks for watching. Goodbye.